But yeah, in season 1, the end of season 1, I didn't like the creation of the 3 elven rings. And first of all, there's a huge deviation there already starting out because they're created out of order. So they're created first, which I just think it's funny that the show is called Rings of Power, but the creation of the 3 elven rings was done in like an afternoon. It really felt like it was tacked on at the end. Like someone had a note that said, no, our show is called Rings of Power, so maybe we should have some rings created in the season, because it feels like it was just done right at the end in an afternoon. And again, there's also the complications when it comes to lore that these rings were created first, and it's very complicated in how they're depicting the elven rings. That even though Sauron wasn't there, he planted the seed of an idea when it came to alloys, when it came to the incorporation of mithril, but he wasn't there when the rings were actually forged. But the way they depict them, they seem like they're alluding to the fact that they have this hold on the bearers. Like there's some air of malevolence to them, like the One Ring has. There was one moment where they've already put on the rings, but the thought of taking it off, they make a specific point to show Gil-galad hiding his ring, protecting it. Like, no, don't even entertain that thought. This is my ring. That there's little things like that. It's very confusing when it comes to the reintroduction of Galadriel and Elrond. She's chasing Elrond, who's basically going to Gil-galad to tell on Galadriel, to the High King, to tell on her because she didn't tell them that Halbrand was Sauron. She just didn't want to look bad, so she didn't say anything. So Elrond is going, he has the rings, and Galadriel's chasing him. She's trying to get the rings. They're in a little pouch that he's carrying, and they're on horseback. It's this dramatic scene. I don't know if it's meant to evoke a similar vibe to Frodo and Arwen being chased by the Nazgul, that kind of thing of the horse chasing. I don't know if it was meant to be like that, but regardless, that's what's happening. And they go to Gil-galad, and they talk about the rings. Basically just says she didn't tell them, and they confront her about it. Why didn't you tell us that Halbrand was Sauron? And she has no excuse. She just deflects. Elrond is the only one that has any sense at this moment. It makes sense for him to be wary about the rings in regards to the fact that Sauron was around during the time of their creation, even though he didn't have a direct hand in it. He thought that maybe it could be a part of a larger plan. So he's the only one that has some form of sense in regards to how they've decided to depict the rings. The dialogue in the scene is not great. And this is one of the scenes that I saw in the marketing campaign before the premiere. Who plays Gil-galad? Benjamin Walker, I think. I'm not really a fan of his portrayal. It's very over the top, like stage actor-y. And that's just how they want him to be portrayed. So nothing against the technicalities of his performance. That's the kind of performance they're looking for. And this is what I was saying before about like overly flowery language, and he just embodies that in his performance. That's the performance they want. It's intentional. He says something like, it's a risk we must chance to take. The way he says it too, but also the words themselves. A risk we must chance to take. What? Anyway, so at the end of the day, my problems are with the rings themselves and how they're the storyline in particular. It's giving costume jewelry for sure. Oh yeah, the design of the rings I'm not a fan of. Galadriel's looks okay, I guess. It looks very like engagement ring-esque. It looks like Kay Jewelers commercial. Like if Kay Jewelers came out with a line of Rings of Power jewelry. Yeah, the Rings of Power look sort of ordinary. And especially Gil-galad's ring, when he puts on the ring. Which ring do you think it would have been? Looking at that, like he's on the bottom here, which by the way, he already has like rings on every finger. I'm surprised he doesn't have one on his thumb. Dude in gold loves his rings. The Ring of Power looks the most ordinary out of the rings on his hand. It looks like a graduation ring. And in comparison to his other like uber gaudy rings, just a little underwhelming there when he puts his on. Such a misrepresentation. The elven rings were never touched by evil, and their lack of corruption helps preserve the elvish realms. The writers just have no clue and use tired tropes instead. And ultimately, that's my problem. It's just how they're portrayed and how this entire storyline goes. It doesn't make sense for them to have this air of corruption to them that they're clearly like putting in the story. And yeah, I just have an issue with that. In a show like this, The Rings of Power, the creation of the rings, it should be so epic, and it's just one little thing in the midst of this huge kind of mess of a show. It's not really given the full attention and full breadth and weight complexity that it deserves. And a show that's called Rings of Power, they're not portraying it right. Elrond goes, he takes the rings. He's like, no, I'm not going to give it to you. He jumps off a waterfall cliff to speak with Círdan, the shipwright, to get his wisdom. And I think that they messed up that part of the story too, which is unfortunate. And that's one of the things I did like was Círdan, the actor. But I actually liked how he looked, at least until before he shaved. He goes to Círdan to get his wisdom about the rings, and they kind of hash it out. I thought that he was going to examine the rings. I thought that was the whole point of him bringing the rings to him and getting his counsel. And they have this little struggle session for a little bit. He doesn't even examine the rings. He doesn't even see them. But I guess they decide to go ahead and destroy them. Círdan takes his little boat, which I don't know why you needed Círdan to do this. Elrond could have done this. If you were just going to destroy them or just lose them, like make sure no one could find them, Elrond could have done that. I thought the whole point was that Círdan was going to advise him and really determine whether or not they were corrupted or not. But no, they just decide, okay, we're just going to drop him in the middle, not even the middle of the ocean. He just goes out to shore a little bit to drop them, and his boat gets tipped over, and I guess he senses the rings, the power of the rings, and then we cut away, and he decides not to destroy him, and that's what it is. He comes with his ring already on, and then we have this moment that it should be cool, I guess, but it's very confusing what's going on as far as Círdan just shows up. He's got the ring on. He gives one to Gil-galad, and the ring just falls in Galadriel's direction. And they're definitely wanting to evoke the image of the One Ring falling, and I guess you could have the image of something happened then. The ring did not intend. It was picked up by the most unlikely creature imaginable. I don't know if they're trying to go with that, evoke that same sense, but the way they framed the shot, it kind of did seem like that. And it seemed that Galadriel only got her ring because it fell in her direction. Is that how it works? Finders keepers? Me just saying it just sounds so ridiculous. Just describing to you what happens. I think this is such a disservice to the character of Galadriel. Again, she wasn't given the ring because she's one of the most wise and powerful elves. No, it just fell towards her. That's why. And I guess that's how things work. Finders keepers rules apply. I mean, it's just one of the most powerful rings ever, and she's already demonstrated a severe lack of judgment when it comes to the affairs of the elves and of Middle-earth by keeping the information of Sauron's identity secret. So on that alone, I don't think she's qualified to have a ring of power. Are they implying that fate is deciding, there's something else is deciding that she should have it other than merit? She can't have it because she's able to wield it, is one of the most powerful and wise elves ever, and it can't be that reason that she has the ring. No. The way they depict Galadriel continues to be an affront to this character. Already in season 1, it was a problem, and they've learned little when it comes to season 2. It's just the same. If we're expecting any changes, no, if anything, it's worse. And I just have a problem specifically because they market it as, oh, look how great this is for women and female characters, when they're depicting the women and female characters predominantly in this show as dim-witted, stupid, blinded by emotion, whether it's revenge or embarrassment, the optics of looking so stupid because she couldn't tell when it came to Halbrand that it was Sauron. And they depict her in this one even worse, I think, at the whims of her emotions and hormones. It seems sexist to me how they've reduced this character and diminished her so much. And they call that character development. Oh, well, she's not the Galadriel we know yet from the Third Age and from the Lord of the Rings books and all that. No, she's not there yet. So I guess it's character development by making her the opposite of that and eventually finding her way to how she's supposed to be. So we're going to depict her as young, which is funny, brash. I'm not sure why Galadriel gets the ring here. They never explain it. No, they never explain it. It's literally she picks it up, puts it on, and they do their little promo marketing shot with the 3 hands showing off their rings. This shot does linger a little too long. It does. Because their fingers start to move a bit, and it's clearly just wanted to set up this shot for marketing, and I hate that. I hate that.